Yep.
So when I met him, that he was special. He'd come in, and I worked at the Emporium, and so did he. And he'd come in and tell me the dumbest jokes you could ever hear. The worst jokes ever, of which I will not repeat most of them. And I just thought he was just kind of silly. And one day, one of my coworkers, she said to me, she was, her name's Elsa, she was from Puerto Rico, she goes, "Hey, Jeanette," because they always called me Jeanette at the Emporium. And she said, "Jeanette, I think he likes you." And I'm like, "Nah, Elsa, no, he's just a funny guy." And then about 2 weeks later, he asked me out. I think probably the best story about him that I could start with would be when we first met, and I actually had an old boyfriend who was kind of stalking me. And he kept it up until one day he walked up into my department, and Ernee appeared from nowhere behind me. And I said, "Get rid of this guy." And he came up to the counter and he said, "Would you like to go outside?" He was a dick's foot, and no. But you know, that didn't matter. He knew what to do. He knew what to do, the right thing. So he told him off. And I'll tell you what, that guy never came back. It was the best. And I like to say,
all to himself.
That's right. And I always used to like to say that, you know, 3 was kind of our magic number, because I was his 3rd wife, which I didn't find out until we went to the marriage certificate place, and I put down, said previous marriages, I put 0, he put 2. I went, "What?" Excuse me, what? And that's when I found out that there'd actually been one more before the one I knew of. But he was always happiest when he was working. And he was amazing. He would laugh when he paid the bills, because he'd been so low and on welfare in Hawaii and not been able to get a job because everyone knew what was wrong with him. And he was so happy, you know, when he was able to come to California, and he'd infuse at home, and really it was like he was normal. To him it was like, this is the best thing ever. I'm working, you know, I'm infusing, everything's great. Life was really good, and I've never seen anybody laugh when they paid bills. But he really liked to do that. We didn't have long enough together. We really didn't. But I'm really glad that we had as long as we did. Because that man opened the car door for me for 17 years. That's usually the first date, and you're done with that, she can get in herself. No, he'd go around and open the door, even when he wasn't driving. He'd come around the side of the car, I'm like, "You're not driving?" He goes, "No, I'm opening the door." Okay, all right. So, you know, he always was so sweet and so respectful and so honest, and really put as much everything into everything that he did. He really made my life really special, and I'm so glad that I had him as long as he did. And I'm glad that I still got my girls. Yeah, both of them, and my beautiful baby girl too. The little miracle baby I never should have had. Thank God. We did. And we were really blessed in a lot of ways. And I think that's the way I remember him. Not at the end when he was ill, but laughing, paying the bills.
You guys hear me?
Yeah. This is really cool.
I'm not really good at this kind of thing, so I'm going to keep it kind of short. All I really want to say is that I don't know where we go when we die. You know, whether it be a next life or heaven or something else. I just know that my dad had a great life, and wherever he is right now, it's probably just as great. So thank you for all coming and honoring his life.
I tried to think of something to say for a really long time. I tried to write stuff down. I couldn't figure it out because, you know, you can't just write on command. It just doesn't work like that usually. So all I can say is that, well, you all know my dad he was an amazing human. He taught us all our strength. And he showed us that no matter what, you know, if we were crippled, if we were healthy, whatever we were going through, you just never give in because you can just get through it. You know, personally, he showed me my strength, and he showed me to trust myself because there ain't nobody else you can trust except for yourself and your family, and even sometimes then it can get questionable. And he was my hero, and I always look up to him, and I will always base my judgments and my opinions and the way I live life and the way that I form my beliefs and the way that I try to relate to other people in my family with this same strength that my papa did. Because that's all he ever did. He always fought and fought and fought and fought, and he had to appreciate those little moments of happiness that we all get once in a while. Even when we're so down and out, all we want to do is kill. You know, there are those little moments of happiness that do pop up, and he taught me to look for him and to appreciate him and to love him. And I'm sure you all know that. I'm sure you guys have seen that in his life. And just remember, that's all you'd ever wanted. That's all you should ever do, is just remember to never give in. And that's that.
If anyone else would like to speak.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to cry. If you turn around. Ernie, I've known Ernie for I don't know how many years. I think since he first became a client. And we've probably had 40,000 phone calls. And anytime a new document came up, either I called or Ernie called. And you gotta see this, Ernie, or look at this, I just found this. And back and forth we go, I don't know how many times. But we've been through all our 4 stages together where neither of our cars were running. And my car was more broken than Ernie's, or Ernie's was more broken than mine. And we did it while I was trying to get my house ready for sale in Hawaii. I was painting, Ernie was doing his kitchen, and we've just had so many calls together. And he'd have to get off the phone all of a sudden. He said, oh, I gotta get the wash done, Renee's gonna come home, and I'm gonna be dead. But I really, of all the time, as long as I've known him, he's always been a fighter. And he called me once, I think it was probably 8 years ago. He really had a bad bout. He was really down. And he said, I'm giving all my documents away. And he said, does Chuck want any of these documents? And I said, Ernie, what the hell's the matter with you? You're not going to die yet. You don't have your settlement. And he said, oh no, I think this is really bad. And I said, you sound like Sanford and Son. You know, this is the big one. I said, don't do this. I said, you're not going yet. You will never ever go until you've settled this. You know it, I know it, that's just a fact. And he certainly didn't. He did not go until it was settled. And I truly miss him. I miss the phone calls. And Chuck just told me about another document he found yesterday, something he'd overlooked. The first thing I think of is, I gotta get this to Ernie. And I really do. I really miss him, and I really miss all the hours and hours of phone calls we've had together. And I do know how much he adores Renee.
Hi, I'm Libby. I hope I can talk and not cry. Well, I don't know if any of you, I had the opportunity to meet Ernee when he was a Republican. And a lot more conservative in lots of ways. And Renee and I worked at the Emporium together with Elsa. And the first time I met him, I'd heard about Ernee and yeah, we're going here and we're going there. And then I saw him. I thought, oh wow, he's pretty neat. He's pretty neat looking. They kind of go together, I think, you know. He looked a little older than her, but I thought, hey, that's okay, you know. And he would come in and purposely tell sexist jokes and talk about these women livers and all this stuff. And at first I thought, oh my God, what have you done, Renee? And then I realized with time that that was just a way, because he knew that I was more liberal, and that was a way for him, for us to find ground on. And in actuality, he just did it to tease, but not to offend. And I know that there was a period in his time, probably around the time that Bill met Ernee, where he was very angry, and it was a problem at home. I think it was just a problem in general. But I think I've seen Ernee in his gentle state and in his angry state, and then again in his gentle state and more acceptance place. And I have to say that I think the gentleness is what I remember most about him, because it's the honorable part of him. It's the part that keeps him doing the right thing. If his anger had remained without the gentleness, it could have become untamed, I think, and melted too many mountains and not gotten very far. And I think that he gave to his family and to his wife what he could, and what he gave to them was the courage to love and to go through both good times and bad times and still remain there. And that is a lesson that I think he needed to learn, but it was something for his family to experience and to be with, and now they have that as a treasure all their life. And I'm grateful that he's been my friend and that I could be a friend to him when others couldn't. And I know that he appreciates all of you that have been in his life and will continue.
I guess I'll never make it. I have to say that Ernie's probably the toughest guy I've ever seen. I'm sorry, but I read his medical records and talked to him, and he's really a tough guy. I'll never forget one incident. I'm talking to his doctor, Dr. Baylor. He told me that he drove his truck down to your office, and he was sure he was going to die. And he was laying in the back of his truck, and she went out there to his truck. And he said, "I think I'm going to die." And she said, "Well, let's go to the hospital. Maybe we can give you some treatment, and you'll make it." And he did. And he lived 8 more years fighting these bastards. I just, how can you describe a guy like that? Just by sheer force of will, he fought all of the medical experts, quote unquote, whom I could go on for hours about. And he made it. And he helped the cause. And I thought when I met Ernee that we'll never be able to work with Ernee. His expectations are so high. He wants millions. He wants to walk into the boardroom of Bayer and say, "All right, we own this place now, and here's how we're going to run it." That was Ernee. I mean, what do you say about a guy like that? I mean, it's just terrific. And he always was very helpful, and I thought we'd never be able to work something out with him. I was very concerned. But you know, I found we're the community that they have a great feeling for one another. When chips are down, they'll come through for one another. And it does seem like it's going to happen, but it always seems to. And I've had to give advice to a lot of people in the hemophilia community that I didn't want to give because we didn't have what I felt was sufficient evidence to really win a convincing victory in court. It was always so difficult because of what we were up against. And that's kind of what I've made my life and career, and that is to expose this. And I think we may be getting to the end of a long, long road. And it's been a terrific struggle, but the disturbing part about it is that it's complicated. There's a lot of different factors involved. It's not only the drug companies, it's the physicians who were prescribing the drug and over-enthusiastic about it and then try to cover up their negligence. So they're willing to come in and testify against their own patients. It's unfortunately the U.S. government, which, because they didn't force the fractionators to obey the safety regulations, and it was so glaring that they in fact became apologists for the companies and would come in and act as experts for them in court. And then the topper, the one we're still battling, is this business of doing a statistical study with so-called geniuses at the National Institute of Health to try to show that everybody was infected before anybody knew that HIV was in the world. And this is a tough thing to battle, because in our system, if they can show it was more likely than not that someone was infected before we even knew HIV was in the world, it's very, very difficult for an attorney to prevail in a civil trial. Unfortunately, the judges in these cases have been very uninterested, most of them. They don't know anything about the hemophilia community. They feel that the hemophilia community should be very grateful, even for the fact that they have the privilege of walking around on this earth, and that any years of life that were given to them by the pharmaceutical companies were years that they wouldn't have had, even as bad as the product was. And now that I've got to know people like Ernee, I know how false that is. So I'm proud to say that I have dedicated half of my practice to exposing this. And I think eventually, this will be exposed. I'm sorry that it hasn't been in time to benefit most of the community, but I think Ernee, you know, I think he was okay with his settlement. I think he was reasonably happy with it. And we'll see happy.
Reasonably.
Standards were rather high. I don't know that we ever could have attained, but it was a pleasure working with him. A great pleasure working with other people like Ken Baxter and others who were involved. And I hope that eventually the truth will come out. And I must say this is what Ernee wanted more than anything. He wanted to know what happened. It wasn't going to be treated like some discard from a medical experiment. He wanted to know what the hell really happened, as we all do. And I think we're very close now. And knowing it is one thing and proving it's another. But I think the proof is maybe just around the corner. And I'm working with lawyers now in Los Angeles where we have 3 cases where we're not going to take some token settlement. We're going to pursue this, and we're going to have a trial, and we're going to see what happens. Hopefully the evidence and the hard work that we've done and are still doing will bring this out. I think eventually there'll be some perhaps writers and books written about this that will help all of us who are citizens of this country understand some of the forces that are at work that are nearly invisible, that we don't see, that have a very dramatic effect on our lives, and that nobody's immune. Don't ever think you're immune. Don't ever think you can sit there and sit back and say, well, Ernee had a congenital problem. That'll never happen to anybody in my family. And don't even go there. Let me tell you. You never know until it happens to you. And then you understand what forces are really at work. So I hope right. I hope you have to understand a little bit about the litigation and where Ernee fit in. Thank you.
He's not loud enough.
Oh dear.
Hello? Anyway, I met Ernee back in 1990, I think. I used to deliver medicine to him. And he was a hard client to please. But once I got to know him, that changed. And then a few years later, we ended up out in front of Bayer Pharmaceuticals protesting against that company for murdering people in our community.
Who murdered those people?
Bayer Pharmaceuticals.
Murdered how many?
10,000 people got HIV and 6,000 are now dead from the product that was supposed to save their lives, not kill them. So he used to call me the king because I was very outrageous with my way of getting a message across. The way I see it, we only have a few seconds, just like a TV commercial, to get somebody's attention, to get them to think about it, and maybe take something with them and think about it later. Ernee was one of my biggest supporters. He was a really good friend, and he kept me going a lot of times when I just mentally thought I was going to go do something violent in order to make a point. I see him as one of my closest supporters in taking positions against Bayer Pharmaceuticals. And the reason why we pick on Bayer Pharmaceutical as opposed to the other 3 or 4 companies involved is because they're an easy, a very visible target in America. It's a company that everybody knows. It's a company that has a past going back to World War II. It's a company that has murdered people before. And then they have the gall to come in this country and do it to us. And they gave us the perfect disease, one that nobody would want to talk about. And they had their roundtable discussions about what they're going to do with this product that's killing people. If they throw it away, they're not going to make any money. If they give it to them, because they're probably sick anyway, is what they assume, they can make plenty of money and they'll deal with the lawsuits later. Besides, who would want to go to court and talk about that issue anyway, especially a bunch of men? I never know what to say when it comes to somebody being gone. You know, whatever I say never seems to be good enough. I don't really want to cry right now. I cared a lot about Ernee, and I'm trying my best to say goodbye to him. I'm gonna miss his support. I'm gonna miss the fire in his personality, and he's one of many that are now gone that had a position and was willing to say something when it wasn't very popular. And I'll probably continue to do that till I die. I might modify it. I'm trying to become a little more approachable than I used to be. I started out with red face paint and other things, but you know, I'll continue to talk to Ernee every time I'm out in front of Bayer Pharmaceuticals demonstrating. When I'm in that van, I feel like I got, you know, 4,000 or 6,000 spirits traveling with me. And I'll put his picture on that van. I'll take it to Florida with me to a national convention this year as a tribute to him. And his face is going to get a lot of attention. I wish he was still here and that he wasn't murdered by a huge pharmaceutical company with lots of money in this country. And I wish that I knew just a few addresses so that, you know, maybe someday they can feel the same way that we do. And that's it.
You'll have to bear with me if I just kind of break down. Ken knows what a small voice I have and how much it needs to be amplified, so thank you for getting this on the right setting for me here, Ken. My husband was one of the early ones to go. He's been gone over 15 years now. And every loss is a fresh pain for me. And it always hits. I never know when it's going to hit, you know, and when it does, it's like, ow! I think I've been fighting it pretty hard all week, and I've been really exhausted, not quite knowing why, and then finally admitting because I didn't want this to hit. So of course it's going to hit now. I'm up here. Very bad timing. But I'm not the only one that this hits. It hits the whole community every time we have a loss. And they're not going to be forgotten. It's so hard to know what to do to keep them alive. There's so many tragedies in the world, and the world gives homage to people when there's a tragedy, but they have not made any effort to right the wrong here. Chuck, I just want to say, difficult? You thought his demands were unrealistic? I mean, hey, isn't that what we deserve? Wasn't he right? What we get is not always what we deserve. I would like to see a memorial built And there don't seem to be a lot of people working on that. And I am using my hobby of quilting to make a semi-memorial. There will only be room for 80 blocks on the first one I'm making, and I brought the beginning of it here. I thought maybe Renee and her family would like to decorate one for Ernee, and maybe Sue would like to do one for Terry. Words are not adequate. The pain is so great. Everything that I have heard about Ernee is so true. I just feel so honored to have known him. I was part of that trip to Carson City, and gentleman is the word that comes to mind to describe Ernee. And to hear Renee say how he opened the door for her for 17 years, I just sat there thinking, of course. I knew that. Nobody told me, but somehow, yeah, I know. And I have no words to offer except my love for his family, and his friends, and for Sue. And I brought a little something for somebody else today, because the family are not the only ones that suffer. Like I said, the whole community suffers, and there's somebody here today who suffers especially with each loss. And I just found something last night that I felt I wanted you to have.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak? No? Well, it looks like our electrician is here. And he's going to hook up the boom box. So we actually have a tape of Ernee from, well, Allie was little. I'm not sure if Danielle was born. So it probably 85 or 86 or maybe even 87. Of him singing with a friend of his, Jeff Schmidt, that he grew up with in Hawaii. And a mutual friend of theirs, Ralph Ray, who had come over to be an audience with me, because somebody had to listen. Some of us are not musically talented and can't sing either. So somebody had to be the audience, and that was always a good thing to be. So we're going to go ahead and listen to that tape. Is it hooked up, Billy? Okay, cool, thank you. Oh, correct.
tell me the quote?
Over 5 seconds, I suppose. I mean, you know. Easier for you, my friend. Help! Help!
Getting too close.
Watch it, I'll go. Wow.
Melissa, are you ready? There! Pharmaceuticals equals mass murder! 6,000 men, women, children dead! Try to zoom in on one, Melissa. Going to a wedding.
Not ours.
September 27th. She's been reading to me. What book are we reading?
We are